Not every car is a winner. Some are absolute train wrecks on wheels. These disasters didn't just miss the mark, they redefined what it means to fail in style. Today we're showcasing the 12 ultra worst American cars ever made. From laughable designs to engines that barely worked, these forgotten flops will leave you wondering, what were they thinking? Strap in, it's going to be a bumpy ride through the strangest and most embarrassing corners of automotive history. The 1976 Dodge Aspen and its twin, the Plymouth Volare, were Chrysler's ambitious attempt to replace two of their most beloved and durable models, the Dodge Dart and Plymouth Valiant. Marketed as the family cars of the future, these vehicles promise comfort, modern styling, and improved efficiency, aiming to appeal to the changing demands of the mid-1970s. At launch, they even received glowing accolades, with the Aspen being awarded Motor Trend's Car of the Year for 1976. However, beneath the glossy advertising and initial praise lay a host of problems that would doom these cars to infamy. Chrysler designed the Aspen and Volare to capitalize on the growing trend of compact cars that delivered more refinement and comfort than their predecessors. The cars featured an all-new platform that promised modern engineering, offering a choice of Chrysler's trusty slant-six engine or a range of powerful V8 options. Special attention was paid to ride quality and interior space, with the aim of creating vehicles that could handle the dual roles of family hauler and stylish commuter. These ambitions were paired with marketing that touted the Aspen and Volare as the next evolution in American motoring. However, this promising vision was ultimately undone by a cascade of production and engineering flaws that would overshadow any initial appeal. One of the most glaring issues was the car's proneness to rust. The Aspen and Volare were notorious for their body panels succumbing to corrosion, sometimes within months of leaving the dealership. The use of thin, poorly treated steel, coupled with insufficient rust proofing, led to severe degradation, particularly in areas with harsh winters or high humidity. Wheel arches, fenders, and even structural components could deteriorate at an alarming rate, leaving owners dismayed as their family cars of the future quickly turned into rust buckets. In some cases, rust would affect the cars so severely that they became unsafe to drive. If the rust wasn't bad enough, the Aspen and Volare suffered from significant mechanical issues. Engine stalling was a frequent complaint, often attributed to carburetor and fuel system problems. The car's slant-six engine, while a stalwart of Chrysler's lineup for decades, was paired with a poorly calibrated emission system that caused frequent misfires and performance issues. The optional V8 engines, while more powerful, were no better in terms of reliability. Suspension components were also a weak point, with many owners reporting premature failure of shocks and bushings, leading to a less than pleasant driving experience. The Aspen and Volare were plagued by recalls. Over 8 million units were recalled during their production run, an astonishing figure that highlighted the extent of their design and manufacturing flaws. Problems ranged from faulty brakes to steering components that could fail under normal use. Build quality was another sore spot. Many cars left the factory with poorly aligned body panels, subpar paint jobs, and interiors that felt cheap and hastily assembled. These issues were a stark contrast to the solid reputation of the Dart and Valiant, which had been known for their dependability and simplicity. Despite these issues, the Aspen and Volare initially captured consumer interest with their modern styling, spacious interiors, and promises of comfort. For buyers seeking an affordable compact car with a touch of refinement, these models seemed like an ideal choice at first glance. However, this initial success quickly gave way to disappointment as reliability problems and widespread reports of rust became impossible to ignore. Sales began to decline sharply as the public became aware of the myriad flaws, turning what had been a promising launch into a prolonged fiasco for Chrysler. By the late 1970s, the Aspen and Volare had become emblematic of the malaise era, a period marked by Detroit's struggle to meet emerging quality standards and counter the growing popularity of imports. The Aspen and Volare are now remembered as some of the most regrettable vehicles of their time. They signify a troubling chapter for Chrysler, one where ambitious goals were undermined by cost-cutting measures, inadequate testing, and rushed production schedules. For automotive historians and enthusiasts, they serve as a cautionary tale of what happens when bold aspirations are not backed by rigorous execution and reliability. In 1988, Ford launched the XP, a small two-seat hatchback that was meant to be a sporty, affordable alternative to the more traditional compact cars of the time. At least, that's how Ford marketed it. They positioned the EXP as a fun-to-drive, economical little car that would appeal to a younger, more adventurous audience who wanted a blend of sporty flair and practicality. However, the reality of the EXP was far from the promises made by its marketing department. Instead of the spirited, fun-to-drive experience Ford intended, the EXP became a symbol of miscommunication between what consumers wanted and what Ford actually delivered. Under the hood, the EXP was equipped with a 1.6-liter four-cylinder engine that produced a disappointing 70 horsepower. In a world where other compact sports cars like the Mazda RX-7 and Volkswagen Scirocco were delivering genuine performance and handling excitement, the EXP fell well short. The engine's output was laughable by comparison, and the car's sluggish acceleration was a constant reminder that Ford's attempt at making a sporty vehicle was a failure. Even its top speed seemed more suited to a compact commuter car than a supposed sporty machine. It was a car that promised excitement but instead offered frustration. It couldn't keep up with the competition, and it certainly didn't offer the thrill that even the most basic sports car enthusiasts expected. Driving the EXP was, in many ways, an underwhelming experience. The car simply wasn't fun to drive. Its suspension was soft, lacking the sharp, responsive handling that is typical of a genuine sports car. Instead, it felt more like a commuter car trying to pretend it was something it wasn't. Its powertrain didn't complement the design, and the driving experience lacked the excitement that was central to the appeal of compact sports cars of the era. The EXP struggled to match the quick, precise handling of its competitors, and the lack of acceleration left many drivers wishing they had opted for something else. As for the design, the EXP's aesthetic was arguably its strongest feature, but even that didn't quite hit the mark. The car's appearance was modern for the time, with smooth lines and a compact shape that gave it a slightly futuristic look. It was clear Ford was trying to appeal to those who wanted something stylish and different, but the execution was flawed. While it didn't look bad, the EXP lacked the charisma or distinctiveness that would have set it apart from the sea of hatchbacks and sedans available in the early 80s. It was just another car in a crowded market, and it didn't have the visual appeal or performance chops to make a lasting impression. Inside, the EXP was even more disappointing. While it was a two-seater, the interior space was tight and cramped, with little room for comfort. The seats were basic and uncomfortable, offering little support for long drives. The interior materials felt cheap, and it was evident that cost-cutting had been prioritized over driver and passenger comfort. For a car marketed as sporty, the EXP lacked the driving ergonomics and creature comforts that would have made it enjoyable for extended periods behind the wheel. One of the most telling aspects of the EXP's failure came from its owners. Here's an example of a review from one of them that captures the sense of betrayal many felt after purchasing the car. "I bought my EXP in 1984, thinking it would be my entry into the world of sporty cars, but I was deeply disappointed. The car looked sleek in the showroom, but once I drove it, I realized I'd made a huge mistake. The engine had no power. I could barely get it to accelerate up to highway speed without feeling like I was pushing it to its limits. The so-called sporty suspension felt like something out of a commuter car. I was hoping for a fun ride, but instead, I got a car that felt sluggish and unresponsive. Even the interior was disappointing, cramped and uncomfortable. I ended up selling the EXP after a year. It was my first and last Ford." For many owners like this one, the EXP turned out to be an exercise in frustration. It was neither sporty nor practical. It didn't deliver the excitement or the performance people were hoping for, and it wasn't even a particularly good commuter car, as its small engine struggled with highway speeds and long drives. In essence, the EXP tried to be everything and ended up being nothing. Ford's marketing of it as a sporty and affordable option left many buyers feeling misled. The EXP's legacy is one of missed potential and poor execution. Ford tried to capture the youthful, sporty spirit of the era, but they got the formula wrong. The car's lack of power, slow acceleration, and uncomfortable interior made it a difficult sell for anyone looking for excitement behind the wheel. Despite its sleek looks and forward-thinking design, the EXP failed to resonate with consumers, and it quickly faded into obscurity. In 1981, General Motors introduced the Oldsmobile Cutlass diesel, a bold attempt to capitalize on the growing interest in diesel-powered vehicles. At the time, diesel engines were gaining popularity for their fuel efficiency, especially during the oil crisis. However, GM's attempt to adapt their existing gasoline V8 engines for diesel use became one of the most infamous failures in automotive history. The Oldsmobile diesel, specifically the Cutlass diesel, quickly became known for its catastrophic engine failures, frequent breakdowns, and crippling repair costs, a legacy that has tainted the Oldsmobile brand for decades. Why it's ultra bad? The main issue with the 1981 Oldsmobile diesel stemmed from GM's decision to repurpose their standard gasoline V8 engines rather than developing a purpose-built diesel engine. Diesel engines require different internal components, a higher compression ratio, and a robust design to withstand the demands of diesel fuel, which is more abrasive than gasoline. GM's engineers, however, believed they could simply modify the existing V8 to work with diesel fuel, and this decision turned out to be disastrous. The gasoline V8 engine wasn't designed to handle the higher compression ratios required by diesel fuel. This mismatch led to severe engine wear, premature failure of internal components, and a host of reliability issues that plagued the Cutlass diesel. The engine's bottom end would often fail due to the higher stress, causing pistons to seize or even completely disintegrate. There were also significant issues with the fuel injection system, which was not well suited for diesel fuel and would frequently malfunction. As a result, owners of the Cutlass diesel were constantly dealing with breakdowns, poor performance, and expensive repairs. On top of that, the 5.7-liter diesel V8 was sluggish and underpowered, especially when compared to other diesel cars on the market. It struggled to produce decent acceleration or maintain consistent power at highway speeds. The car's fuel economy, which was supposed to be its saving grace, also didn't live up to expectations. While it was more fuel efficient than its gasoline counterparts, it was far from the diesel efficiency seen in other cars of the time, and many owners were left wondering if the trade-off in power and reliability was even worth it. The combination of poor design, engine failure, and underwhelming performance turned the Cutlass diesel into a nightmare for owners. Not only did it cost a fortune to maintain, but the engine's frequent breakdowns often left drivers stranded or in need of costly repairs that could exceed the car's value. Legacy. The legacy of the 1981 Oldsmobile diesel is one of the most infamous tales of poor engineering in automotive history. It is widely regarded as one of the worst engineered diesel cars ever built, and its reputation for unreliability has made it a symbol of GM's hubris during the early 1980s. For car enthusiasts and collectors, the Oldsmobile Cutlass diesel has become a punchline, a cautionary tale of how attempting to cut corners in engineering can lead to catastrophic results. Even though GM tried to correct the issues with the engine in later models, the damage had already been done. The Cutlass diesel was discontinued after just a few years of production, and it remains a sore spot in GM's history. What was meant to be a fuel-efficient, eco-friendly solution turned into a costly disaster that tarnished the brand's image for years. Owner stories from the era are filled with frustration and regret. One owner recalled, "I bought my Cutlass diesel in 1981 thinking I was making a smart choice for the future. Diesel was supposed to save me money on fuel, and the Cutlass had a nice look to it. But within 6 months, I was dealing with engine failure after engine failure. First, the engine started knocking. Then, the fuel injection system went out. I took it to the dealer, and they had no idea what was wrong. I spent more money on repairs than the car was worth. It was a nightmare, and I sold it after just 1 year. Never again." The Oldsmobile diesel failed to live up to the promise of diesel power and efficiency, becoming a symbol of engineering failure. The attempt to adapt an existing gasoline engine for diesel use showed a lack of understanding of the unique demands of diesel engines, and it left a long-lasting scar on GM's reputation. While the Cutlass diesel may have been part of a broader trend toward diesel cars in the early 80s, it is remembered as a major misstep, one that continues to serve as a cautionary tale for automakers who think they can take shortcuts in engineering. In the years since, the Cutlass diesel has remained a subject of derision in the automotive community. It's a car that highlights how technological innovation, when not properly executed, can turn into a monumental disaster. In 1980, Chrysler launched the Dodge Mirada, a personal luxury coupe that was intended to compete with some of the most iconic models in the segment, such as the Ford Thunderbird and Chevrolet Monte Carlo. These vehicles were popular for combining style, comfort, and performance, with a bit of swagger. Chrysler hoped the Mirada would offer the same appeal to buyers looking for an affordable, yet luxurious coupe. However, rather than becoming a contender in the market, the Mirada quickly revealed itself to be a massive misstep, a car that fell short in almost every area, in a model that faded into obscurity almost as quickly as it had been introduced. The Dodge Mirada's biggest issue was its lack of performance. Chrysler's decision to equip the car with a 5.2-liter V8 engine, producing just 140 horsepower, was a major flaw. When compared to its competitors such as the Ford Thunderbird and Chevrolet Monte Carlo, both of which were equipped with more powerful V8 engines, the Mirada was sluggish and uninspiring. At a time when personal luxury coupes were expected to offer a balance of power and comfort, the Mirada could barely keep up. Its engine was simply underwhelming for the car's size, offering disappointing acceleration and a lackluster driving experience. Unlike the more performance-oriented Thunderbird or the muscular Monte Carlo, the Mirada felt like it had been built to be more of a commuter car, stripped of the luxury and excitement that buyers were looking for in this segment. On the road, the Mirada's performance was further hindered by its dated suspension and handling, which didn't match the smooth, refined ride of its competitors. While it wasn't exactly difficult to drive, the car lacked the engaging driving dynamics that people expected from a vehicle in this class. Drivers found that the Mirada's handling was numb, and its performance failed to impress on long drives or on the highway, where the Monte Carlo and Thunderbird excelled. Instead of offering an engaging, fun driving experience, it left owners feeling underwhelmed and disappointed. The car's build quality also raised red flags. Chrysler had been struggling financially in the late 70s and early 80s, and it showed in the Mirada. The interior was poorly constructed, with cheap plastics and materials that gave it a low-rent feel. It lacked the luxurious touch that buyers were expecting from a personal luxury coupe. The seats were uncomfortable, offering minimal support for long drives, and the layout felt cheap and uninspired. Compared to the plush, well-appointed interiors of its competitors, the Mirada's cabin was an afterthought. The fit and finish left much to be desired, and overall, the car failed to create the feeling of luxury it promised. The dashboard design was archaic and felt out of place for a vehicle that was supposed to represent sophistication. Even the exterior styling felt disjointed and unremarkable. While it wasn't unattractive, it lacked the elegance or visual flair that made the Thunderbird and Monte Carlo stand out. The Mirada appeared like a hastily designed vehicle that couldn't find its identity, neither sporty nor luxurious. It seemed like a poor imitation of its more successful rivals. Beyond the performance and build quality issues, the Dodge Mirada suffered from an unfortunate timing problem. When Chrysler launched the car, the personal luxury coupe market was already beginning to decline. The oil crisis in the 1970s had shifted consumer preferences towards smaller, more fuel-efficient vehicles, leaving large, gas-guzzling luxury cars out of favor. The Mirada, with its sluggish V8 and unimpressive fuel efficiency, was already at odds with the market trend by the time it debuted. It seemed that Chrysler had missed the boat, trying to sell a product that no longer fit the changing tastes of American consumers. Moreover, the Mirada was competing with far more established and refined models. The Ford Thunderbird was still a symbol of American luxury, offering performance and elegance, while the Monte Carlo had already earned a reputation as a well-rounded and stylish personal coupe. The Mirada, in comparison, was a car that felt incomplete, neither refined enough to compete with the Thunderbird, nor powerful enough to stand toe-to-toe with the Monte Carlo. Chrysler's attempt to create a new offering in this market ended in failure, with the car being quickly overshadowed by its rivals. By the time the Mirada had been in production for just a few years, it was clear that the car had failed to capture the public's imagination. Its poor performance, cheap build quality, outdated design, and unfortunate timing all contributed to its swift demise. The car faded into obscurity, and Chrysler discontinued the model after just a few short years of production. Owners quickly realized that the Mirada didn't deliver on its promises, and many were left regretting their purchase. The 1973 Chevrolet Chevelle Laguna is one of the more unfortunate chapters in the history of the Chevelle nameplate. Chevrolet Chevelle had been a popular muscle car and mid-size vehicle since its introduction in the 1960s, known for its powerful engines, stylish design, and strong performance. But when the Laguna was introduced in 1973 as a part of the Chevelle lineup, it marked the beginning of the car's decline. The Laguna was an attempt to revamp the Chevelle to appeal to a new generation of buyers, but it ended up being a poorly executed version of its predecessors, leaving it with a tarnished legacy that didn't match the storied reputation of the Chevelle name. Why it's ultra bad? The 1973 Chevelle Laguna was launched as a part of Chevrolet's plan to offer a more luxurious version of the Chevelle. However, it quickly became clear that the Laguna was a misstep, lacking the charisma and performance that had made the Chevelle popular in the past. One of the first problems with the Laguna was its styling. Chevrolet tried to create a more refined, sleek design, but the end result was an awkward, unattractive car. The front-end styling of the Laguna was especially problematic, with its flat, square grille and bulging fenders. It was a departure from the more aggressive and muscular look that had made the Chevelle a standout in the muscle car era. Instead of a sleek, powerful stance, the Laguna looked bloated and uninspired. Its design ill-suited for the image Chevrolet had hoped to project. But it wasn't just the styling that let the Laguna down. The car's engine lineup was also a huge disappointment. The Laguna came with a range of engines, including a 350 cubic inch V8, which was considered underpowered for the car's size. In an era where muscle cars were expected to have powerful, high-performance engines, the Laguna's offerings felt weak and uninspiring. The V8 engines were not as potent as what the competition was offering, and the car lacked the performance edge that the Chevelle nameplate had built its reputation on. With its hefty weight and relatively low horsepower, the Laguna couldn't deliver the raw, thrilling acceleration that muscle car enthusiasts had come to expect. The heavy weight of the Laguna was another significant issue. Unlike the earlier Chevelles, which were lighter and more agile, the Laguna's bulkiness made it sluggish on the road. The combination of an underpowered engine and a heavy chassis resulted in poor handling, a lack of responsiveness, and a general feeling of sluggishness. This was particularly disappointing given the Chevelle's history of offering fun, engaging performance. The Laguna felt less like a performance car and more like a bloated cruiser, a far cry from the powerful, nimble Chevelle that had helped define the muscle car era. Another problem was the shift in the automotive landscape at the time. The early 1970s saw the decline of the muscle car era as the oil crisis and tightening emissions regulations led to a decrease in demand for powerful gas-guzzling vehicles. However, instead of adapting to this new reality with more efficient engines or innovative designs, Chevrolet seemed to double down on trying to make the Laguna a luxury vehicle, a shift that didn't resonate with customers. While the Chevelle had been known for its performance, the Laguna tried to be everything: a muscle car, a luxury vehicle, and a family car all rolled into one. It didn't succeed in any of these areas, and as a result, it left customers disappointed and confused about the car's true identity. Legacy. The 1973 Chevrolet Chevelle Laguna is widely regarded as one of the least successful variants of the Chevelle. It failed to live up to the expectations of a nameplate that had been synonymous with power, performance, and style. The Laguna's unattractive design, underwhelming engine options, and poor performance were a stark contrast to the Chevelle's earlier years, when the car had been a dominant force in the muscle car market. As a result, the Laguna quickly faded into obscurity and is now often cited as a proof that even the most beloved nameplates can be susceptible to failure. The Chevelle Laguna also marked the beginning of the end for the Chevelle model itself. The Laguna would continue to be sold in various forms until the Chevelle was discontinued in 1907, but the car's performance and reputation never recovered. Today, the Laguna is often seen as a cautionary tale in the automotive world, a reminder that even the most iconic brands can stumble if they stray too far from what made them great. Owner stories of the Laguna often reflect the car's failings. One former owner shared their experience. "I had a 1973 Chevelle Laguna for a while, and I was really disappointed. I loved the Chevelle name, but the Laguna just didn't do it for me. The engine was weak, and the car was so heavy. It wasn't fun to drive, and it wasn't the muscle car I was hoping for." In 1957, Ford unveiled one of the most ambitious and innovative cars of its era, the Ford Fairlane 500 Skyliner, the first mass-produced car with a retractable hardtop. It was a bold and futuristic idea, designed to combine the sleekness of a coupe with the open-air freedom of a convertible. The Skyliner represented a significant leap in automotive engineering and showcased Ford's desire to push boundaries in an era of rapid innovation. However, despite its groundbreaking design, the Skyliner became a cautionary tale of ambition outpacing execution. While it was a marvel to behold, its complex retractable roof system proved to be its Achilles' heel, earning it a reputation as one of the most problematic cars of its time. The Skyliner's big idea. The concept of a retractable hardtop wasn't new in 1957, but Ford was the first automaker to bring it to the mass market. The Skyliner's roof mechanism was an engineering marvel for its time. With the push of a button, an intricate system of 7 electric motors, 4 lift jacks, 4 locking mechanisms, and almost 200 feet of wiring worked in unison to fold the steel roof into the trunk. Watching the transformation was like seeing a car perform a magic trick, and it captured the imagination of car enthusiasts and casual observers alike. The retractable hardtop allowed Ford to market the Skyliner as the ultimate two-in-one vehicle. The comfort and security of a coupe when the roof was up, and the thrill of a convertible when it was down. It was a bold move by Ford to stand out in a competitive market, and for a brief moment, the Skyliner looked like it could be a game changer. Why it's ultra bad? While the idea was brilliant, the execution left much to be desired. The retractable roof's complexity turned out to be its downfall. The intricate mechanism required precision to function correctly, but in practice it was prone to failures. The electric motors often burned out, wiring connections shorted, and the mechanical components jammed. Owners quickly discovered that even minor issues in the system could leave the roof stuck midway through its transformation, sometimes leaving the car undrivable. Imagine being caught in a sudden rainstorm with your roof stuck halfway between open and closed. This was a common nightmare for Skyliner owners. The reliability issues were so severe that many Skyliners spent more time in repair shops than on the road. Dealers often struggled to fix the problems, as the technology was so advanced for its time that even trained mechanics found it challenging to diagnose and repair faults. Another significant drawback of the Skyliner was the trunk space, or lack thereof. The retractable roof folded into the trunk, taking up almost all the available storage space. For a car marketed as a luxurious and versatile cruiser, this was a major inconvenience. Owners who wanted to go on road trips or carry luggage quickly realized that the Skyliner's design prioritized its gimmick over practicality. And then there was the weight. The retractable roof mechanism added hundreds of pounds to the car, making it significantly heavier than a standard Fairlane. This extra weight negatively impacted the car's performance and fuel efficiency. The Skyliner was sluggish to accelerate, and its handling was less nimble than its coupe and sedan siblings. The added weight also contributed to wear and tear on the suspension and brakes, compounding its reliability issues. Legacy: the 1957 Ford Skyliner is remembered as both a pioneering marvel and a cautionary tale. Its retractable hardtop was a glimpse into the future, showcasing what was possible when automakers pushed the boundaries of engineering. However, it also highlighted the risks of overcomplicating a design without fully understanding its practical implications. While the Skyliner was undeniably impressive on paper and in showroom demonstrations, its real-world performance left much to be desired. Despite its flaws, the Skyliner holds a special place in automotive history as an example of mid-century innovation. Collectors today admire the Skyliner for its boldness and rarity, as relatively few were sold due to its high price and notorious reliability issues. Enthusiasts who own and maintain Skyliners today often speak of their love-hate relationship with the car. As one collector noted, the Skyliner is a masterpiece of engineering and a nightmare of maintenance. Every time I take it out, I hold my breath when I push the button for the roof. When it works, it's magic. When it doesn't, it's a disaster. Ford's experiment with the retractable hardtop didn't last long. By 1959, the Skyliner was discontinued, replaced by more conventional convertible designs. While the retractable roof idea resurfaced decades later in more advanced and reliable forms, the Skyliner remains a reminder of how ambitious ideas can sometimes falter when the technology isn't quite ready. The 1982 Chevrolet Cavalier convertible was Chevrolet's attempt to bring a sense of fun and affordability to the compact car market. At the time, small cars were becoming increasingly popular in the United States due to rising fuel costs and a growing desire for practicality. Chevrolet had high hopes for the Cavalier, aiming to compete with compact imports like the Honda Civic and Volkswagen Rabbit. While the standard Cavalier coupe and sedan were unremarkable but serviceable entries in the market, the convertible version highlighted every weakness of the car, turning an already uninspiring vehicle into a frustrating and problematic experience. When Chevrolet decided to add a convertible to the Cavalier lineup, they took a bold step, as affordable drop-tops were relatively rare at the time. The idea was to offer a budget-friendly alternative to pricier convertibles, making open-air driving accessible to the average consumer. Unfortunately, the execution fell flat. Converting the Cavalier into a convertible involved removing the roof, which severely compromised the car's structural integrity. The unibody design, which was already on the cheaper end of the spectrum, became wobbly and prone to excessive flexing. Drivers quickly noticed the unsettling phenomenon of cowl shake, where the dashboard and steering column vibrated over bumps. This issue wasn't just an annoyance, it also made the car feel unstable and undermined any sense of confidence behind the wheel. Handling suffered as well, with the car feeling imprecise and sluggish in corners. For a vehicle marketed as fun and lively, the driving experience was anything but. Another major problem was the convertible top itself. While the concept of a folding soft top was appealing, the reality was far from ideal. The mechanism was clunky, and the materials used were subpar, leading to frequent leaks. Owners often found water pooling in the cabin after rainstorms or car washes, resulting in damp, musty interiors. The top also provided minimal sound insulation, making highway driving noisy and unpleasant. What was supposed to be a stylish and carefree ride often turned into a damp and rattling ordeal. The Cavalier convertible's performance didn't help its case either. It was powered by a 1.8-liter four-cylinder engine that produced a meager 88 horsepower. While this might have been passable in the coupe or sedan, the added weight of the convertible top mechanism made the car even slower. Acceleration was sluggish, and the engine strained under load, especially with passengers or cargo. The car's lack of power was particularly disappointing for a vehicle that aspired to be a fun, spirited convertible. Instead, it felt lethargic and uninspired. To make matters worse, the convertible sacrificed practicality. The roof mechanism took up a significant portion of the trunk, leaving little room for luggage or groceries. For a car meant to be affordable and versatile, this lack of storage space was a major drawback. Combined with the car's poor build quality and unimpressive performance, it became clear that the Cavalier convertible was a case of style over substance, and even the style was questionable. The design of the Cavalier convertible was awkward at best. The boxy lines of the standard Cavalier didn't translate well to a drop-top configuration, resulting in a car that looked more like a hastily modified coupe than a thoughtfully designed convertible. With the top up, the car appeared bulky and awkward, and with the top down, its proportions felt unbalanced. It lacked the elegance and flair typically associated with the convertibles, further diminishing its appeal. For many owners, the Cavalier convertible was a lesson in disappointment. One frustrated driver recalled, "I thought I was getting a fun, affordable convertible, but it turned into a money pit. The roof leaked, the car shook every time I hit a bump, and it felt like I was driving a sewing machine with how underpowered it was. I couldn't get rid of it fast enough. Despite its flaws, the Cavalier convertible does hold a peculiar place in automotive history. It represents an era when American automakers were struggling to adapt to changing consumer demands and trying to compete with imports on price and innovation. Chevrolet's decision to offer a convertible in the compact segment was bold, but the execution simply wasn't there. Today, the Cavalier convertible is largely forgotten, overshadowed by its more successful competitors, and remembered only by those who owned one, or were unlucky enough to work on one. For collectors and enthusiasts, the 1982 Chevrolet Cavalier convertible, more of a curiosity than a classic. Its rarity stems not from desirability, but from the fact that so few survive due to their poor build quality and high rate of abandonment. While it's unlikely to ever achieve iconic status, it does serve as a reminder of the risks automakers take when they prioritize novelty over. The 1974 AMC Matador Coupe remains one of the most infamous cars in automotive history, a product of the ambitious yet often misguided vision of the American Motors Corporation, AMC. In the early 1970s, AMC was in a tough spot, struggling against the dominance of the big three automakers, General Motors, Ford, and Chrysler. As the U.S. automotive market shifted toward more compact and efficient cars, AMC needed a way to stand out and capture the attention of buyers. In 1974, the Matador Coupe was born, a bold attempt to break into the personal luxury car segment and compete with cars like the Chevrolet Monte Carlo and Ford Thunderbird. Unfortunately, the result was one of the most polarizing designs of the era, a car that was, at best, memorable for all the wrong reasons. The Matador Coupe was designed by Richard Teague, a man known for his distinctive and innovative approach to car design. AMC was hoping to give the Matador a futuristic, bold look that would make it stand out in a crowded market. The car's long, sloping roofline, dramatic front end, and exaggerated wheel arches were meant to evoke a sense of luxury and performance. But in reality, the design came off as awkward and clumsy. While some might have admired the Matador Coupe's attempt at being different, most buyers were turned off by its strange proportions and lack of coherence. Critics were quick to label it ugly, odd, and even unattractive, with many likening it to a fish or an overgrown doorstop. It wasn't just that the car was unconventional. It was that its attempts at being futuristic looked outdated and disjointed almost immediately. While other cars in its class offered smooth lines and sleek profiles, the Matador Coupe seemed to try too hard, resulting in a design that felt out of place rather than ahead of its time. Despite its eye-catching, if controversial, styling, the Matador Coupe was also underwhelming in terms of performance. At launch, the base model was powered by a 232 cubic inch inline-six engine that generated just 100 horsepower. This was an anemic output for a car of its size, and even with the optional V8 engines, including a 304, 360, and a 401, the Matador Coupe still struggled to deliver impressive performance. The largest V8, while offering more power, was saddled with the car's significant weight and lackluster suspension. What AMC had hoped would be a sporty coupe turned into a sluggish and uninspiring ride. The car's handling was sloppy and unrefined, and while it offered a smooth ride, it lacked the excitement and engagement that buyers in the personal luxury segment expected. Acceleration was not quick by any standard, and for a car that looked like it was trying to be something special, it simply didn't deliver on the promise of performance. The build quality of the Matador Coupe further compounded its issues. Like many AMC models of the time, the Matador Coupe was built on a shoestring budget. While the car's exterior tried to stand out, the interior felt like a step backward. Inside, the cabin was spacious but used cheap materials that didn't stand up to the competition. The dashboard was cluttered and uninspired, and the seats were uncomfortable. The fit and finish were far from exceptional, with numerous complaints from owners about rattles and poor attention to detail. The lack of refinement in the interior only added to the car's lack of appeal, leaving buyers unimpressed when compared to the more polished offerings from Chevrolet and Ford. Despite its bold design and the availability of powerful V8 engines, the Matador Coupe couldn't compete with the other personal luxury cars on the market. The Chevrolet Monte Carlo, for example, offered a much smoother, more cohesive design, while the Ford Thunderbird was known for its refined luxury. The Matador Coupe, with its strange styling, awkward proportions, and unimpressive performance, couldn't capture the attention of the buyers AMC desperately needed. Sales were disappointing, and by the mid-1970s, the car had become a sales flop. AMC, already struggling financially, did not have the resources to give the Matador Coupe the kind of marketing support or development it needed to succeed. The Coupe's lack of appeal in the market left AMC with fewer options, and its failure was emblematic of the challenges the company faced in the face of competition from larger, better-funded automakers. The Matador Coupe's reputation as one of the ugliest cars ever made has persisted over the decades. In automotive circles, it's frequently cited as an example of a car that tried too hard to be different and failed miserably. While other cars from AMC's lineup, such as the Gremlin and Pacer, gained cult followings for their quirky designs and niche appeal, the Matador Coupe failed to resonate with most car buyers. It became a symbol of misguided ambition, of a company trying to carve out a place for itself in a market dominated by larger, more experienced players. The 1987 Cadillac Allante was an ambitious attempt by General Motors to challenge the European luxury roadster market. It was a joint venture between Cadillac and the renowned Italian design house, Pininfarina, which gave it a sleek and stylish appearance. Cadillac aimed to position the Allante as a high-end European-inspired roadster that could compete with offerings like the Porsche 944, BMW Z1, and Mercedes-Benz SL. However, the Allante's performance, platform, and pricing issues ultimately doomed it, and it became a symbol of Cadillac's failed attempt to crack into the sports car market. When the Allante was first revealed, it seemed to check all the right boxes. The exterior was designed by Pininfarina, known for creating beautiful and stylish cars for brands like Ferrari. The sleek, curvaceous lines of the Allante gave it a distinctly European flair, setting it apart from other Cadillacs on the road. The car's soft-top convertible design added to its allure, and on paper it appeared to be a genuine competitor to the world's top roadsters. Cadillac, a brand long associated with luxury and comfort, was now trying to make a statement in the sporty, high-performance realm, hoping to attract a younger, more dynamic buyer. However, while the Allante had the looks, it lacked the substance to make it a true competitor. The biggest issue with the Allante was its performance. Despite its high-end image, the Allante was sluggish by roadster standards. It was powered by a 4.1-liter V8 engine, which produced just 130 horsepower, hardly a match for its European competitors, who were offering cars with superior acceleration and handling. Even with the 4.5-liter V8 that became available later, the Allante still struggled to deliver the kind of performance expected from a luxury roadster. The car's front-wheel drive platform further hindered its appeal to sports car enthusiasts. Roadsters of the time were typically rear-wheel drive, which provided better handling dynamics, especially in high-speed cornering and tight maneuvers. The Allante's front-wheel drive setup resulted in a heavy, understeering nature, making it less enjoyable to drive, especially compared to the nimble, rear-drive competitors from Europe. The Allante's pricing was another major issue. Cadillac marketed it as a luxury vehicle, but its price was considerably high for the level of performance it offered. Starting at around $55,000 in 1987, roughly $130,000 in today's money, it was priced similarly to European roadsters that outperformed it in nearly every area. Buyers who were considering an Allante had better performing options from Porsche, BMW, and Mercedes-Benz, all of which had proven track records and offered superior driving experiences. For Cadillac, this high price point was a major obstacle. Many buyers couldn't justify paying so much for a car that didn't live up to the performance expectations of the roadster segment. Despite being a Cadillac, the Allante lacked some of the luxury features that customers expected from the brand. While the interior was well-appointed, it was not as refined or high-tech as those in its competitors. Some buyers were also put off by the Allante's overall quality, which didn't match the luxurious feel that Cadillac had built its reputation on. Additionally, the Allante's build quality and reliability were questionable, with some owners reporting issues with the car's soft-top roof, electrical systems, and other components. One of the more unique and frustrating aspects of the Allante's production was its manufacturing process. The cars were built in Italy by Pininfarina and then shipped to Michigan for final assembly. This labor-intensive process led to long production times, quality control problems, and ultimately higher costs. It was a far cry from the more streamlined and efficient manufacturing processes employed by competitors, and it only added to the Allante's already inflated price. While Cadillac hoped the Allante would appeal to a younger, more performance-oriented demographic, it ended up being a niche product that was neither a true sports car nor a proper luxury vehicle. Buyers who were looking for a serious roadster found the Allante lacking in both performance and driving excitement, while Cadillac loyalists were hesitant to embrace a vehicle that didn't fully reflect the brand's traditional focus on comfort and luxury. As a result, the Allante struggled to find its market, and sales were underwhelming. Cadillac produced just over 21,000 units in its entire 7-year production run, far fewer than they had hoped. In the years since, the Allante has become a symbol of missed opportunity for Cadillac. The car had the potential to be a game changer, offering a unique blend of European design and American luxury, but its sluggish performance, high price, and lack of true sports car appeal doomed it to obscurity. Cadillac's attempt to compete with the likes of Porsche, the 1970 Mercury Cyclone spoiler was Mercury's attempt to ride the wave of the muscle car era. With its aggressive aerodynamic design, striking graphics, and bold name, the Cyclone spoiler promised excitement, power, and track-ready performance. However, while it certainly looked the part, the car struggled to live up to its billing in an increasingly competitive market. What could have been a contender among muscle car heavyweights turned out to be an also-ran, plagued by its heft, lackluster performance in base trims, and a disconnect between its styling and substance. Mercury marketed the Cyclone spoiler as the top-tier performance version of the Cyclone lineup, featuring a unique aerodynamic nose, a chin spoiler, and bold, racing-inspired paint schemes. The car was clearly designed with NASCAR homologation in mind, and its visual appeal reflected Mercury's desire to create a car that stood out on both the showroom floor and the racetrack. For those who cared about looks, the Cyclone spoiler delivered in spades. It had a commanding presence with its recessed grille, quad headlights, and sleek body lines. The optional hood scoop and rear spoiler added to its muscle car persona, making it look fast even when standing still. Under the hood, however, the Cyclone spoiler was a mixed bag. The standard engine was a 351 cubic inch Windsor V8, producing a modest 250 horsepower. While this engine was sufficient for cruising, it fell short of delivering the thrilling acceleration that muscle car enthusiasts craved. For those willing to spend more, Mercury offered a range of engine upgrades, including the 429 Cobra Jet and Super Cobra Jet, which produced up to 370 horsepower. These high-performance options were impressive on paper and capable of solid quarter-mile times, but they were rare and expensive, limiting their appeal to only the most die-hard buyers. The Cyclone spoiler's biggest drawback was its weight. Tipping the scales at nearly 4,000 pounds, the car was heavy even by muscle car standards. This extra weight dulled its acceleration, strained its handling, and made it feel more like a grand tourer than a nimble street racer. While competitors like the Pontiac GTO, Chevrolet Chevelle SS, and Dodge Charger offered a better balance of power and agility, the Cyclone spoiler often felt sluggish and unwieldy in comparison. Even with the top-tier 429 engines, the car struggled to fully shake its cumbersome nature, especially in tight corners or under hard braking. Inside, the Cyclone spoiler was comfortable but uninspiring. Mercury leaned into its position as a slightly upscale brand, so the cabin featured better materials and more amenities than some of its Ford counterparts. However, the interior design didn't scream performance, and for buyers looking for a raw, visceral muscle car experience, the Cyclone spoiler felt overly refined and out of touch. The inclusion of features like wood grain trim and padded seats seemed to detract from the car's sporty aspirations, making it feel like it was trying to be too many things at once: a luxury car, a family car, and a muscle car. The Cyclone spoiler also struggled with its identity in the shadow of Ford's lineup. The Mercury brand was often seen as a stepchild to Ford, and the Cyclone spoiler suffered from this association. Why buy a Cyclone spoiler when you could get a Ford Torino Cobra which offered similar performance and styling at a lower price. This overlap made it hard for Mercury to carve out its niche in the muscle car market. Many buyers simply opted for the Ford equivalent, leaving the Cyclone spoiler with lackluster sales and little recognition. Another factor working against the Cyclone spoiler was timing. By 1970, the muscle car market was beginning to wane as insurance rates soared, emissions regulations loomed, and fuel economy concerns started creeping into the minds of buyers. Mercury's focus on creating a car that prioritized looks over substance didn't help its cause, as muscle car fans were increasingly looking for machines that delivered uncompromised performance at a reasonable price. The Cyclone spoiler may have caught the eye, but it rarely won over the wallets of performance-minded drivers. One former owner recalled their experience with the car. "I bought the Cyclone spoiler because it looked incredible. The front end was sleek, the paint job was flashy, and it turned heads wherever I went. But driving it was a different story. The base engine felt weak, and while I eventually upgraded to a bigger V8, the car never handled as well as I hoped. It was more of a cruiser than a bruiser. I loved the way it looked, but I always felt like I was compensating for what it lacked under the hood." Today, the 1970 Mercury Cyclone spoiler occupies an interesting place in muscle car history. It's not remembered as a standout performer, but it does have a certain charm for enthusiasts who appreciate its bold styling and unique presence. The 1984 Pontiac Fiero arrived with high expectations and an ambitious goal: to bring the mid-engine sports car experience to the masses. It was a bold move for Pontiac and General Motors, offering a design philosophy more commonly associated with European marques like Ferrari or Porsche. With its futuristic looks and a mid-engine layout, the Fiero captured the imagination of car enthusiasts and buyers who wanted an affordable sports car. However, its debut year was marred by significant shortcomings that tarnished its reputation almost immediately. What could have been a revolutionary car ended up as a cautionary tale of compromised engineering and unmet promises. The Fiero's design was undeniably ahead of its time for an American car. Its wedge-shaped body, pop-up headlights, and mid-engine configuration were exotic and daring, especially when compared to the boxy sedans and coupes of the early 1980s. The Fiero's styling screamed sports car, and it promised a driving experience to match. Pontiac's marketing emphasized the car's innovative engineering, including the mid-engine layout, which was a first for an American production car, and its space frame construction with plastic body panels. These panels wouldn't rust and allowed for easy design updates, making the Fiero feel cutting edge. Underneath the eye-catching exterior, however, the 1984 Fiero told a different story. The base engine was a 2.5-liter Iron Duke inline-4, which produced a modest 92 horsepower. While adequate for daily driving, this engine fell far short of delivering the thrilling performance buyers expected from a car marketed as a sports car. The Fiero's 60 mph time of about 11 seconds was painfully slow compared to its contemporaries. Even with the sportier suspension package available, the Fiero felt more like an economy car in disguise than a true performance machine. The root of many of the Fiero's issues lay in how it was conceived. General Motors positioned the Fiero as an economical commuter car that could double as a sporty weekend ride. To keep costs down, many of the car's components were borrowed from GM's existing parts bin. The suspension, for instance, was adapted from economy cars like the Chevy Citation and Chevette. This setup prioritized ride comfort and cost efficiency over the precision handling enthusiasts expected from a mid-engine sports car. The result was a car that looked ready for the racetrack but performed like a commuter hatchback. Compounding these performance shortcomings was the Fiero's infamous reliability issues. The 1984 model was plagued by mechanical problems, the most notorious being its tendency to catch fire. Early Fieros suffered from engine oil leaks, and the undersized oil capacity of the 2.5-liter engine often led to overheating. In some cases, oil dripped onto the hot exhaust manifold, causing catastrophic fires. While GM eventually addressed these issues, the damage to the Fiero's reputation was immediate and lasting. Buyers were understandably wary of a car with a reputation for bursting into flames, and the press wasn't kind either. The build quality of the early Fiero also left much to be desired. Rattling interiors, inconsistent panel gaps, and electrical gremlins were common complaints from owners. The car's unconventional space frame construction, while innovative, presented assembly challenges that Pontiac's factories struggled to perfect. For many buyers, the Fiero didn't live up to its promise of being a dependable and exciting car. One owner from the time shared their bittersweet experience. "I was so excited to buy a Fiero when it first came out. It looked like nothing else on the road, and I felt like I was driving a piece of the future. But the reality set in quickly. My car spent more time in the shop than on the road. I'll never forget the moment when I smelled burning oil and pulled over, terrified it would catch fire. I traded it in as soon as I could." Despite its rough start, the Fiero wasn't a lost cause. Later models saw significant improvements. Pontiac introduced a 2.8-liter V6 engine, which finally gave the car the performance it deserved, and they revamped the suspension to deliver better handling. By 1988, the Fiero had evolved into a genuinely capable sports car. However, by that time, its reputation had been so thoroughly tarnished that buyers had moved on, and GM decided to discontinue the model. In hindsight, the 1984 Pontiac Fiero remains a fascinating piece of automotive history. It was a car that aimed high, with a groundbreaking design and a bold vision, but it was undermined by cost-cutting measures and rushed execution. The Fiero's failure in its debut year serves as a reminder of the importance of delivering on expectations, particularly when launching a product with so much potential. Today, the Fiero enjoys a cult following among enthusiasts, especially for its later improved models. It's also become a popular platform for the 1978 Ford Fairmont was Ford's answer to the rising demand for practical, fuel-efficient vehicles in the aftermath of the 1970s oil crisis. Built on the newly developed Fox platform, which would later underpin a variety of Ford vehicles, including the Mustang, the Fairmont was designed to be lightweight, economical, and affordable. It was a far cry from the land yachts of the 1960s and early 1970s, signaling a shift in American automotive priorities. But while the Fairmont achieved its goals of practicality and efficiency, it did so at the expense of style, performance, and personality, earning it a reputation as one of the most uninspiring cars of its time. From a design perspective, the Fairmont was about as conservative as it gets. The car's boxy shape, unadorned sheet metal, and minimalist styling were a clear reflection of the malaise era, a time when American automakers prioritized cost-cutting and fuel efficiency over innovation or excitement. Available in sedan, wagon, and coupe variants, the Fairmont was functional but utterly devoid of flair. Even in its sportiest configurations, like the Futura Coupe with its sloped roofline, the Fairmont lacked the visual punch that might have given it some character. Under the hood, the Fairmont offered a range of engines, starting with a 2.3-liter inline-4, producing just 88 horsepower. For those who wanted a bit more power, there were optional inline-6 and V8 engines, with the top-of-the-line 5.0-liter V8 delivering a modest 140 horsepower. While the V8 provided acceptable acceleration, the 4-cylinder and 6-cylinder models were painfully slow, especially when paired with the sluggish 3-speed automatic transmission. The Fairmont was designed with fuel economy in mind, but its efficiency gains came at the cost of any semblance of performance. Driving the base model was an exercise in patience, as it struggled to merge onto highways or climb steep inclines without a fight. The Fairmont's handling was equally uninspiring. Built on the Fox platform, which prioritized lightweight construction, the car offered a smooth ride on flat roads but struggled with body roll and vague steering in corners. While the platform had potential later realized in vehicles like the Mustang, it was tuned for comfort in economy in the Fairmont, leaving it feeling disconnected and unengaging. Enthusiasts looking for a dynamic driving experience were left sorely disappointed. Inside, the Fairmont was a study in austerity. The interior was dominated by hard plastics, vinyl upholstery, and basic controls. While functional, it lacked the quality and refinement found in some of its competitors. Even when equipped with optional features like air conditioning or an AM/FM radio, the Fairmont's cabin felt cheap and uninspired. It was clear that Ford had prioritized cost-cutting in the materials and assembly, which further reinforced the car's image as a utilitarian appliance rather than a vehicle to be enjoyed. Despite its shortcomings, the Fairmont wasn't a complete failure. It was affordable, easy to maintain, and reasonably fuel-efficient for the time. These qualities made it a popular choice for families and commuters who needed basic, reliable transportation. Ford sold over 1 million Fairmonts during its production run, a testament to its practicality and widespread appeal. However, the car's success in the marketplace didn't translate into affection or nostalgia. For most owners, the Fairmont was a tool, a way to get from point A to point B, and little more. One former owner summed up their experience with the Fairmont. "It wasn't exciting, but it got the job done. I bought it because it was cheap and easy to fix, not because I liked it. Looking back, it's probably the most forgettable car I've ever owned. It didn't break down much, but it also didn't bring me any joy." The Fairmont's legacy is less about the car itself and more about the platform it introduced. The Fox platform proved to be incredibly versatile, underpinning everything from the Ford Mustang to the Lincoln Continental over its decades-long lifespan. While the Fairmont was a bland and uninspiring debut for the platform, it laid the groundwork for some truly memorable vehicles down the line. Today, the Fairmont is largely forgotten, overshadowed by the more exciting and innovative cars of its era. It's rarely seen at car shows or on enthusiast wish lists, and it's unlikely to ever achieve classic status. For most people, the 1978 Ford Fairmont is a symbol of the compromises and cost-cutting that defined the malaise era. A car built to meet the bare minimum of what buyers needed, with no thought given to what they might actually want. In the end, the Fairmont's story is one of missed opportunities. While it achieved its goals of practicality and efficiency, it failed to capture the imagination or enthusiasm of the driving public. As a result, it remains a footnote in automotive history.